Hey everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another What the Heck Was That? The series where I look at a film or a story that just left me going, what did I just watch? And why was it like that? And why did they do that? And why they make these decisions? If you are a fan of the channel and have watched my worst of 2025 and my dishonorable mentions from 2025, you'll know that I started watching a whole bunch of this genre of films that I call the childhood turned horror films or the public domain horror films. These are the films that have been popping up a lot in the last few years. Films based off of IP that just became public domain, and they rushed out a horror film based on it to try and cash grab off of the title. That's where we get things like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and Pinocchio Unstrung, Popeye the Slayer Man, and Mouseboat Massacre. And so I've been watching a lot of those, and the majority of them are god-awful, like some of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. I probably should have stopped last year, but this year I've started watching some more of them, so don't be surprised if some of them pop up on my worst films of 2026, because, oh boy. Have I seen some bad ones today. But I've also watched some of the older ones, and today we're going to be talking about one of those that came out in 2024. This one is based off of Wizard of Oz, and it is just called Oz. Of all the public domain properties that you can try and turn into a horror film and do a dark, twisted version of, Wizard of Oz is one you can do that with fairly easily. Goodness knows Disney tried to make a legitimate sequel to the original with Return to Oz, and everyone's like, nope, too scary. It's too dark. We don't like how dark it is. And it's like, it's not even that dark, but okay. But these people have decided, no, they're going to make full-on, straight-up horror films based off Wizard of Oz. And the first one of them that I chose to watch was 2024's Oz, which I assume came out to coincide with Wicked coming out the same year to, try and piggyback off of that popularity. This one chose to make some of the oddest choices I have ever seen in any of these childhood horror films. And some of them make the film worse, and some of them make the film way more interesting. We're going to talk about today. Today I'll be covering Oz from 2024. For starters, I don't like the title. I get it. It's Wizard of Oz. We're going to call it Oz. It's perfectly fine title. There's nothing wrong with the title, except that it makes it incredibly hard to find and get information on. Because when I went looking for the footage to make this video for it, I had to dig through so many of the wrong versions of Oz. Like, if they just given it a undertitle, like it could have been Oz, The Dark Path, or The Bones Road, or something like that, would have been really simplified and make this an easier to find film and easier to get information on film. I did eventually find the full thing on YouTube. I will include a link in the description below if you want to watch it. I'm not 100% certain if I would recommend that. This is a film that when you're watching it, you can immediately tell that this was not made by an English-speaking country. I thought it was Eastern European, honestly, but it turns out this is actually Brazilian. It is made by a Brazilian crew that I believe dubbed themselves over into English, and you can tell that the writing and the way it was not done by a fluent English speaker, because there's some interesting dialogue choices here. So let's go a little bit over the plot of this one. So the film starts with us seeing Dorothy Gale staring at herself in a full-size mirror. She has a bag hanging next to the mirror that has her full name printed on it for some reason. And she's staring at herself in the mirror and then sneaks over to the side, pulls out a piece of chocolate, and then inhales it and gnashes on it like she has been raised by an almond mother. Like this is the only sweet she's ever gets to have in her life. And then she goes over to the mirror and starts berating herself for having eaten said chocolate.
I hate myself.
One of the odd things I will say with her look right off the bat is she is wearing this bottom half that is part skirt, part shorts. And it's just really weird where it breaks and how it shows itself. It's like, it's an odd choice. So she grabs a pair of roller skates, goes outside, puts the roller skates on, stands up, and falls over. She immediately gets mad, takes the skates off, and leaves. And I'm like, girl, you're never going to learn to roller skate if you give up after falling down one time. Like, no one would ever do anything if they gave up after they failed once. Later on, she'll mention how she really wanted to learn how to roller skate. I'm like, if you really want to learn how to roller skate, then learn how to roller skate. Like, don't just give up immediately. Dorothy starts going down the street where she runs into this woman who tells her to not go that way, and Dorothy basically ignores her and keeps going down that road.
This idea was so stupid.
She ends up running into this creepy clown who convinces her to go and see this magic show. Dorothy goes into the magic show, sits down, and she is the only human in the audience. There are 3 other beings in the audience that are not human. They are these weird puppet-like things. And the clown goes up to the front of the stage and transforms into the magician. And then the magician starts doing the most basic beginner magic tricks you've ever seen, and then goes down to Dorothy and it's like, you need to come be part of the show. And she's like, no, I don't want to be part of the show. He's like, yes, you must come. And convinces her somehow to get on the stage. He keeps switching between being the magician and being the clown. His assistant shows up with a vial and they make Dorothy drink it and pushes her into a box. The audience of puppet things stand up, start applauding. One of the puppets, his hat falls off when he stands up, and he has to reach down and grab it and put it back on and go back to clapping. It's clearly an error that they kept in the film, but it's incredibly charming. That's probably my biggest smile in the whole film. Dorothy finds herself spinning and falling into this horrible green mist, and she ends up landing on the side of this road in the middle of a forest. The film then cuts to black for no reason, like it's a commercial break. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the film, it just happens here for no particular reason. She stands up, looks around, and then goes,
Where have they bring me?
She says verbatim, where have they bring me? Yeah, I 100% knew at that line, like, this is definitely people that don't speak English. And the funny thing is I was watching this with English subtitles, and their accents and their voices and their stuff is so bad, even the subtitles cannot tell what they're saying at some points. Like, it is hilariously insane how bad it can be sometimes. A woman magically appears and tells Dorothy to follow the Bones Road to find the answers, but be quick, it's dangerous here. She then starts laughing maniacally for no reason. Dorothy reaches down, grabs a brick, and hurls it at the woman's head, cracking her head open. Dorothy ties the woman up, and it's like, I'm going to leave you here if you don't tell me what I want to know. The woman's like, I don't know. So Dorothy turns to leave. Dorothy stops, looks back, the woman is gone. It was at this point in the film that I had to wake up and pay attention, because I was not actively watching this film when I started it the first time. I had it play in the background while I was doing other things, because it's a childhood turned horror film. These do not deserve my full attention. These are usually, even the great ones of these, which I've only found one I would even say is good, let alone that. Even that one doesn't deserve my full attention. That immediately changed when Dorothy picked up the brick and bludgeoned this woman that did nothing to her for no reason. Second that brick hit her head, I went, oh, and I stopped the film and I rewound it and I watched it again from the beginning and I started taking notes because I knew that this was a film that I was going to want notes on because it was ridiculously all over the place. What kind of response is that to a person who's like, hey, follow this road. Be safe, though. It's dangerous here. And your response is, here's a brick to the head. Like, this woman didn't do anything to you, Dorothy. She was actually giving you advice. I mean, yes, she looks a lot like the assistant, but come on. So Dorothy starts going down the Bones Road, which isn't a road. It's not even a path. She ends up coming across this bean that is chained to a tree, screaming about wanting brains. It turns out that it's not really a man, that this is a weird half man, half zombie, but the zombie half is painted on, is covering part of his face for some reason. For whatever reason, Dorothy's like, you kind of look like a scarecrow. Yeah, sure, a zombie looks a lot like a scarecrow. So she goes up to the scarecrow and is like, hey, I'm looking for the magician. It's kind of funny. Even in my second view through this, I watched this part and I went, how does she know there's a magician of Oz? Because there is a specific person called the Magician of Oz. The Glinda person at the beginning did not say anything about the magician. And it only when I started looking at my notes and going through it, I'm going, oh, right, she was sent here by a magician. She's looking for that magician, not necessarily the specific Magician of Oz, even though they are the same person. But it was a thing that threw me in the film. There's no Wizard of Oz in this version. He is called the Magician for some reason. So she's like, oh yeah, I'm looking for the magician. And the Scarecrow's like, the magician's the one that tied me up here. Can you let me out? Please? I can lead you to where he is. And so Dorothy unchains him, and he immediately attacks her and tries to eat her. She manages to push him off and keep him at a distance. They end up agreeing to work together to find and stop the magician. So they start traveling together. Dorothy then full-on breaks the fourth wall by going, it's really weird that I am Dorothy, and I'm here in some weird other world with a scarecrow traveling down a road towards a magician. But that's the extent of it. It's like there's no deeper thought than that about this. So they continue on down the road. You're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And the film, for some reason, switches to a green filter. They eventually run into this cyborg woman. And she says that she is the guardian of the path and she will not let them pass.
And the sun, guardian of the sun. Fuck off!
Dorothy's like, oh, who are you? And she's like, I don't know. And we find out that she doesn't remember anything and she can't feel anything. But she does remember that she hates magic. Because every time they bring up the magician, she's like, no, I hate magic. Don't talk about that. The Scarecrow is like, we should just kill her. And he tries to attack her. She pushes the Scarecrow over her with literally no effort. And he immediately is like, she's too strong. I'm done. I give up. The Tin Woman suddenly remembers that magician is the one who tortured her and put her into this metal body. So she agrees to go with them to go and find the magician and make him pay. They have the Scarecrow go out ahead, and the Tin Woman looks at Dorothy and goes, do not trust him. He will only hurt you. And Dorothy says, oh, you do have a heart. So they start wandering off down the road.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
And Dorothy somehow ends up getting separated from the group. And it turns to night. She is then grabbed by this weird barbarian man wearing a strange kind of gas mask. He drags her into the woods, ties her to a post where he's going to kill her. Because he thinks, you were sent by the magician. You were here looking for me. I have to kill you before you kill me. Dorothy starts screaming. The Tin Woman and the Scarecrow hear her and come to her rescue because she is only a couple feet away. Like, it does not take them long to get to there. The barbarian thinks that they are all in line with the magician, so he starts getting ready to try and fight them, and is very stilted and doesn't work, and then barbarian trips on a rock. The Scarecrow picks up said rock and goes to kill him, but Dorothy stops him. Dorothy refers to him as a lion, and the only reason I can even guess that is that his mask sometimes looks like a lion's face, but that is only depending on certain angles and certain times. It's a really flimsy reach to make him the Cowardly Lion, but yeah, okay. Definitely not the first thing that popped in my brain when I saw that. So they ask the lion to join them, and he agrees, and they start on down the road more. Down the road. Now that the whole team is here, they really feel like a group of LARPers in the park. They decide that they're going to stop for a rest. The Tin Woman pulls out a bottle and starts drinking from it, which causes her to glow. Continue on more down the road. They end up entering into this cave and start hearing these noises. They are then attacked by some of the worst CGI bats I have ever seen. Like, This is not quite Birdemic bad, but it's pretty dang close. Like, it's pretty awful. The film also starts to go wonky, and all of the characters start moving like they're stop motion animation. They manage to make it out of the cave. They then come across a part of the woods where there are doll parts hanging from trees. The Tin Woman gets a flash of herself when she was human, holding a doll. They continue on until it becomes night and they decide to rest. Dorothy falls asleep, and the Scarecrow immediately tries to eat Dorothy's brains. But the Tin Woman scares him off. He then goes over to the lion and is about to eat his brains, but somehow stops himself. Dorothy dreams about seeing the Scarecrow and the lion as people in a park having a fight. She wakes up the next morning and is like, asks the Tin Woman's like, did you get any sleep? And she's like, no, I don't need sleep anymore. Next day, they continue on their journey. They end up crossing this rickety bridge, which is not rickety at all, but it scares the lion and he doesn't want to cross. They come across these weird stones with these strange markings on them, and the second they step into the stones, they find themselves trapped inside this blue haze. And then inside the blue haze, there's a whole bunch of really bad AI monsters. This is the thing that makes me not even want to do this review for this film, because they use AI art and they use a lot of it. I am someone who I'm kind of in the middle on AI art. I don't mind it if you're doing it for fun and you're doing it for just to have fun with it and do some odd stuff. I'm okay with that. But when you start taking people's jobs with it and start trying to sell it and try to make money from it, that's when I get a lot more like about it. And when it's a film like this that is trying to sell you the film and make you want to watch the film, it's like going this cheap, especially with the type of art that this is. Like, these are generic looking monsters. This is stuff you could easily pay a brand new art student to make for you, and they would do it for fairly cheap. I'll talk more about the AI art at the end, but yeah, it's definitely a thing that I can see making people not want to watch this, on top of everything else that makes you not want to watch this film. Dorothy manages to light a torch and is able to get themselves out of the blue haze. They finally manage to see the castle, which is on this weird looking matte painting. As they get closer to the castle, Dorothy sees flashes of herself in the castle wearing all white. Once they're inside the castle, we start seeing weird AI art of the Wizard of Oz. And sometimes the art is moving, sometimes the eyes follow them, sometimes they do not. It's incredibly disturbing and weird, and like, again, I don't know why they chose to use AI art, but they did. They end up running into the magician, who is the same magician that sent Dorothy here in the first place. He starts monologuing about his evil intents and what his plans are, and he is by far the worst actor in the film. He is horrendously bad in this.
No magic more fascinating than illusion. This is the illusion. Life is an illusion.
He moves and talks like a broken Disney animatronic. So he starts going over his evil villain monologue and how each of you came to me wanting something, and I gave you that in my own twisted way. Scarecrow, you wanted to be the smartest person in the room, and so I fed you human brains until you started to crave it. Lion, you wanted to be brave. I made it so you were strong and capable. And Tin Woman, you wanted to feel love, but I gave you something better. I took away your ability to feel anything, to make you stronger. And that was a better fate for you than leaving me for my brother, wasn't it? And while he's telling all this, we get flashes of each of these characters in a hospital being experimented on. We then find out that Dorothy is a mental patient in a psych hospital, that she tried to kill herself, and that everything that's happened, everything that's gone on for the entire film, has been in her head as a drug-induced hallucination. All of her friends were other patients in the psych hospital. The magician and his assistant were doctors in the hospital. This is the thing that made me like, okay, I gotta talk about this film, because this comes out of nowhere. It's really interestingly done, and it's really well done. It's Wizard of Oz. You don't eat like the whole. This could be all in your mind is the thing that could be a factor because this is what is actually happening. It isn't. Oh, Oz might be real and the psych hospital might be made up. It's like no, she is definitely a mental patient in a psych hospital, and everything that happened at the start of this film has been in her head. I've seen that done, but I've never seen it done to this extent and have it be this much of the story, and it's just really interesting and creative with that. It also explains a couple things. Like it explains why the Scarecrow zombie face was painted on because when you see him in the real world, half of his face is covered because he's been horribly mutilated. And it turns out that all of her friends are on the doctor's side and they grab her and they take her downstairs and they hook her up and start doing electroshock. I'm not going to say therapy. They just start doing electroshock to her. Now, without all of the makeup and without the covering for the lion and all that, you can tell that these are really, really bad actors. And they had to really dub over their lines, especially the lion. Like, his mouth movements and his lines do not match in any way, shape, or form. It's very bad.
Although I don't agree with it. Damn psycho.
We also find out that the doctor, the magician, is clearly psychotic. He actually believes that Oz is a real place and that he's going to make himself the magician of Oz and rule over it. And he has been doing all of this as part of a ritual to make Oz real. And that he did all of these things for a specific reason. He tortured the Tin Woman and took away her ability to feel things and took away her humanity. For falling in love with his brother, who we find out was the Scarecrow. And the Scarecrow, he mutilated his face and fed him nothing but human brains as punishment. So he tortured these people and mutilated his brother for revenge, but also as part of this ritual. Dorothy tries to convince her friends to unhook her from the electroshock machine and let her go. They start to crack and want to help her, but before they're able to do so, the magician gasses the room and knocks them all out. He comes in, takes Dorothy, ties her into the middle of this circle. I thought it was a pentagram at first, but it doesn't have the star in it, so it's just a dark red circle. We then find out that the female doctor, who was also the magician's assistant, who was also the Glinda-like person she threw a brick at, has been behind all of this. That this is all her plan, that she is actually the Wicked Witch. She has this plan to make Oz real that she found from a book on witchcraft. Her plan is to have Dorothy be willing to sacrifice herself. If she dies willingly, then we can bring Oz into the real world, and she's been working with the magician to make that happen. She takes Dorothy's 3 allies and takes them into this room and forces them to watch a horrible AI-generated Wizard of Oz that is just like horrendously bad. She then goes to Dorothy and reveals her big evil plan, and as she talks, CGI monsters start appearing around her but then disappear almost immediately for no reason. The witch cuts her wrist and starts to drip the blood onto Dorothy, but it is CGI green and doesn't drip properly. It drips in a really weird, odd way, which makes me also believe that they did it through AI. Somehow, the Scarecrow has managed to break out of the theater room and then stabs him with the dagger, and this kills the magician and somehow causes the witch to just explode. They untie Dorothy and tell her that she needs to go back out into the real world. She says she doesn't want to leave without her friends. They tell her that they are too monstrous to exist in the real world. Also, all of the medication that they've been given over the years has been highly radioactive and they are going to die soon anyway. So they just tell her to go. Dorothy leaves, goes out the front door. We then see one of the orderlies from the hospital dressed as the magician with the evil witch beside him. Film cuts to black. The was that? Like, this is definitely a what the heck did I just watch type of film. Like, oh my goodness. Like, Dorothy picking up the brick and throwing it at that woman is weird enough as it is, but just it kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier as it went on. So let's start with the thing that makes me not want to talk about this film, makes me not want to review this film, makes me not want to shine any light or any praise on this film in any way, shape, or form, because you used horrible AI art to get around having to pay actual artists to do their actual job. And especially, like, you could do that on a low budget. Like, you could have found a college student that just graduated or is still in school and that can do this basic level of art for you. All of the monsters that show up as the AI stuff is very generic and very easy, and you could get someone to just draw something like that and make it work. It doesn't have to be AI. I don't understand why they had to use it as much as they did. I don't understand why they used AI art for all of the Wizard of Oz spots, considering Wizard of Oz, at least the books, is public domain. You could just use art from the books or fan art from the books or do artistic renderings of that, you know? You can get stuff like that you can hang on these walls for cheap. She could have shown them the film from the 1910s in that theater scene instead of having this really bad fake AI art. Only justification I can see for doing this is because they wanted to have the Tin Man be represented as a woman throughout all of the art, which she isn't, so that doesn't make sense either. It just makes this a film that I don't want to actually give any praise to, which is a shame because there's stuff in this film to actually give it praise for. Is this a good film? No. No, it's a horrendous film. It's really bad. It's got some terrible acting, terrible script. The pacing is all over the place. The effects are god-awful to AI. It's got some decent makeup. Like, the Tin Woman actually looks pretty okay, considering. But it's just so intriguingly awful. There's some interesting stuff to this. Dorothy's character is just so odd. Her throwing that brick is just one of the most WTF things I've ever seen in the film, where it's just like, what was why was that your first response? Like, you didn't chase her, you didn't try to grab her, you didn't try to make her talk. Your first instinct is bludgeon her to death. This woman just showed up and told me to go down this road and to be careful, it's dangerous out here, and I decided to show her that I'm dangerous by throwing a brick at her head. And there's stuff in this that I could see being used to make a good film of this nature, like turning the Scarecrow into a zombie kind of works. It would explain his obsession with brains. It would explain some of that stuff. Making the Tin Man into a cyborg turned against their will also works, and I've seen that done before in some other stuff. Like, it makes some sense. Fusing Glinda and the Wicked Witch of the West into the same person, which is kind of what they did. But the Cowardly Lion as a weird barbarian man that isn't really that cowardly, except this handful of times that he is. Like, there's so many choices in this that just leave you going, what? Why did you do that? Even from the beginning of the film, just like Dorothy wants to learn to roller skate. She falls down once, she gives up immediately. The magician's show being filled with puppets. I guess they couldn't get more actors or extras for that. But if you were going to do that, just have it be an empty thing. That would be fine. It is crazy from the get-go, and it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier. And then it calms down when we're finally inside the insane asylum. And we're like, oh, that's why everything's been crazy. Okay. Like, the twist in the middle there is just so strangely compelling that it just kind of takes the whole film in a completely different direction. And that part is the more interesting part of the film. But it's also like a slightly more boring part of the film because it's just them in rooms at that point. I've seen stories do the whole we might be crazy type of thing, but I've very rarely seen it where the actual plot is, no, you're actually crazy. This has all been in your head. Beautiful Mind is one of the only ones where I can see that being happening. But even that had, some gray stuff where it's like, that actually happened. That didn't happen. This is like, no, everything we saw from the beginning of the film has been in her mind. She's never left the hospital. She's always been here. And that is ambitious, and it makes the film more interesting and more intriguing. This dark, twisted Oz be entirely in her mind really does something. It reminds me kind of the American McGee's Alice.
want to go among mad people.
And it completely changes the tone and the feel and everything that was going on with the story. As an adaptation of Wizard of Oz, this is bad. As a horror film, this is not great, but it's interesting and entertaining, which is surprising. And the film is just all over the place with its tone, with its effects, with its story, with its elements, like its style. Everything is just... This is a film that is just on that line of being so bad it's good. I wouldn't say it is actually so bad it's good, but it's intriguing enough to be something worth a watch if you are the kind of person that is interested in films like that. But it's so intriguing and interesting and oddly done that you're just kind of like fascinated by it. And compared to the majority of these childhood horror films, I can definitely say this is more ambitious, this is more interesting, this is definitely far more compelling than the majority of those, because the majority of those are just boring slasher films but with a Mickey Mouse mask or a Winnie the Pooh mask and doesn't do anything actually creative or interesting with the idea. This actually did some interesting stuff with it. They do it in the worst possible cheaply done way they can, but I could see a version of this where it actually works and is actually an interesting, good film. But it's also a film I can't recommend just because of the AI art. There's so much other stuff going on in here that I can be a little forgiving of it. Not a lot. I'm still not going to say it's good or I recommend the film because of that, but I can definitely say without even having watched a lot of the other Wizard of Oz horror films, I don't think they're going to be as interesting or as intriguing. Like, if I find another one, I might do another video, but yeah, this one is definitely one that just left me going, that was an experience. I thought that was really different. I'm like, I could see bringing something like this to a bad movie night because this has moments and stuff that keeps it interesting and entertaining. But that's just my thoughts on this film. What do you all think? Have you heard of this film? I have a hard time believing a lot of people have, but if you have, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did this part work? Did some other parts not work? Let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna put in the description below there a link to the film. It is on YouTube, and I also found it on Tubi. If you look up Oz, it's gonna be one of the first things that pops up, at least as of right now. It may not be on Tubi forever, but as far as the childhood horror films go, like, this is not my favorite. I think Steamboat is still a better film, and I would even say Popeye the Slayer Man is a better film than this. But it's the one I have the easiest time going back to, and it's one I would definitely not mind going and watching again. And that says a lot, because majority of those childhood-toned horror films I would rather stab my eyes out than watch again. But that's my thoughts. What do you all think? Let me know. Happy watching, happy reading. I'll see you all next time. Bye!